Mangwana Nimalelepo Vukenjani Klekwasvana Ve Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the broadcast that brings you the latest stories shaping the continent on DSTV 285, GoTV 25, oneup2.com, and the Network Media Hub on YouTube. Today, as Namibia mourns its founding father, Dr. Sam Nujoma, his motto remains arrive in Windhoek for the official procession. In Pretoria, the Namibian embassy alongside ANC paid tribute to his legacy at a memorial service, with former South African President Thabo Mbeki delivering the keynote address. We also mark 140 years since the Berlin Conference, which redrew Africa's borders without its people's consent, leaving lasting impacts to this day. Meanwhile, remittance costs in sub-Saharan Africa remain the highest worldwide, affecting millions who depend on money transfers. Adi Hochad also joins us with the latest from South Africa, so do stay with us for these stories and more right here on Africa Good Morning. But before we get into our top stories, here is an update on the route the mortal remains of Namibia's founding father, Dr. Sam Shafishuna Nujoma, will take in Windhoek today. The route begins at Sam Nujoma Drive into Mandume Ndemfayo Drive, and then David Hosea Meroro Road via Jan Yonka, Hendrik Witboy Drive, Winnie straight into Moses Karweb Street, Winnie Madikizela Road, Independence Avenue, Soweto Market, Karatura ShopRite, SWAPO Headquarters, Fire Brigade Circle, CBD via Avani Hotel, with his body then being laid in wait at the Parliament Gardens. You are still with Africa Good Morning. We're going to get straight into our top stories this morning. The African National Congress joined the Namibian Embassy in honoring the life and legacy of Comrade President, His Excellency Dr. Sam Shafishuna Nujoma, the founding president and father of the Namibian nation. The memorial service took place on Wednesday, 26 February at ZK Matthews Great Hall, UNISA, Pretoria, bringing together comrades in remembrance of a revolutionary giant whose leadership and sacrifice shaped the course of liberation in Southern Africa. His Excellency Dr. Thabo Mbeki, Chancellor of UNISA and former President of South Africa, was among those paying tribute at the memorial service. UNISA Principal and Vice Chancellor Professor Puleng Lenkabula opened the proceedings with welcoming remarks, setting the tone for solemn yet celebratory reflection on Dr. Nujoma's legacy.
Of Namibia. In 2024, we signed an agreement with the University of Namibia, and our first project was to look into the liberation histories of South Africa and Namibia and the works that still is required to historicize these experiences. It is therefore through your library, President Mbeki, that we are able to draw on the strengths of these relationships and how we can learn and draw from these histories the important imperative. I recognize that the opposition political party leader in Namibia is also here. You're welcome at the University of South Africa. We also recognize that in the quest of building democracy, we don't just need opposition political party leaders that are separate from the emancipatory project, that even political parties must be called to action in order that they remedy the fault lines of apartheid, of colonialism, and they become partners and anchors of the project of emancipation. And therefore, the quest for liberation is not only for liberation parties such as SWAPO and the African National Congress, but it is a quest that all people with agency, with common sense, with consciousness must at all times propose, propel, advocate for, and work for an inclusive and sustainable society that is attentive to economic emancipation and social emancipation must be attentive to. In conclusion, at UNISA, we deeply value our long-standing ties with Namibia and remain committed to fostering academic partnerships that align with the vision of progressive, educated, and empowered Namibia as we do center education as an important resource for our public, private, and social sectors in order that we develop and co-construct the new futures that are aiding the dignity of Africa's people. We share yet again in the grief of the Namibian people during this difficult time of bereavement after the passing of Dr. Nyoma. A massive tree has fallen.
Now, His Excellency Veiko Khenyi-Wete, Namibia's High Commissioner to South Africa, delivered this tribute at the memorial service for His Excellency Dr. Sam Shafishuna Nyoma.
I would like to call the Councillor, Aino Humphrey, to read my statement.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Today we gather with heavy hearts as we pay tribute and celebrate a life of a giant of our history, founding president and father of the Namibian nation, the late His Excellency Dr. Sam Shafishuna Nyoma. Born on 12 May 1929 in Netunda in Umsati of northern Namibia, Dr. Sam Shafishuna Nyoma grew up under a brutal system of South African colonial apartheid rule. From a young age, he recognized the deep injustice faced by his people and resolved to fight for their freedom. Working on the South African Railway in Windhoek as a young man, he saw first-hand discrimination and oppression suffered by Black Namibians. Instead of submitting to this injustice, he chose to challenge it. In the late 1950s, he became a leading voice against the racist apartheid laws, organizing protests, mobilizing his people. In 1960, he co-founded the Southwest Africa People Organization, well-known SWAPO, the driving force and the vanguard behind Namibia liberation struggle.
In our next story, this month marks 140 years since European powers met in Berlin to divide Africa among themselves, permanently altering the continent's future. The Berlin Conference, held from November 1884 to February 1885, formalized European claims over African territories with no African leaders present. Led by German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck, the conference was meant to prevent European conflict over Africa's vast resources. Britain, France, Germany, Portugal, and Belgium were the key players, redrawing Africa's map without regard for its peoples or existing nation. Now, the result was the infamous Scramble for Africa, a race for control over land rich in palm oil, gold, rubber, and other resources. The General Act of 1885 established tax-free trade zones in the Congo and Niger River basins and recognized King Leopold II's personal control over the Congo Free State. Under his rule, millions of Congolese suffered forced labor and brutal punishments, including amputations in one of history's worst colonial atrocities. The conference also set the groundwork for Africa's modern borders, many of which remain in place today. While some boundaries were later revised after World War I, the colonial divisions drawn in Berlin continued to influence political and ethnic conflicts across the African continent. The last of our African top stories. Sub-Saharan Africa is still the most expensive region in the world to transfer money to, with an average remittance cost of 8.37% in the second quarter of 2024, according to the World Bank's most recent remittance report. Despite the rising importance of remittances in the area, sending money home remains expensive due to several middlemen and limited access to digital financial services. Sub-Saharan Africa is still the most expensive region in the world to transfer money to, with an average remittance cost of 8.37% in the second quarter of 2024. Now, if you look at countries like Zimbabwe, you will realize that when it comes to remittances, it's almost the backbone of the entire economy. In 2023, in sub-Saharan Africa, the area received $54 billion in remittances, which considerably boosted the economy of numerous nations. Remittances, for example, account for more than 20% of GDP in the Gambia, Lesotho, and the Comoros, as well as more than 10% in Liberia, Cape Verde, and Guinea-Bissau. Even in larger economies such as Kenya, remittances are more valuable than some of the country's main exports. Traditionally, sending money to Africa involves a few middlemen, including third-party financial institutions and foreign currency brokers looking to maximize their own profits. Each intermediary contributes an extra fee, raising prices and aggravating delays. Additionally, while digital remittance services are often less expensive than the worldwide average, the majority of transactions to sub-Saharan Africa still use traditional cash transfers. These transactions need additional processing and have higher costs. There is also a difficulty with restricted internet connectivity. Despite these limitations, fintech companies have arisen to disrupt the remittance sector by providing cheaper and quicker alternatives. Those have been the top stories on Africa Good Morning. We're going to have a look at the weather before we return with Ari Hogard bringing us all the stories from South Africa.
Welcome to Namibia, where adventure meets tranquility. With Enjoy, you have access to a wide range of accommodations to suit every traveler's taste and budget. Experience the finest dining and hospitality Namibia has to offer. Booking your dream accommodation is just a few clicks away with Enjoy. Join thousands of happy travelers who have trusted Enjoy for their Namibian getaway. Your gateway to unforgettable Namibian adventures. Visit us today at enjoy.my.in.
That's the news stories from South Africa. Good morning, Ari. How are you?
Good morning.
It's good to have you on the show. Now, let's get straight into your current affairs story. President Cyril Ramaphosa opened the G20 finance track yesterday in Johannesburg, while the DA announced a plan for the government to cut 60 billion rand from the budget.
Yes, lots happening in South Africa, and there's lots of focus on the G20 that opened. It's the finance track. That's the first, let's say, phase of that. Later in the year, there will be the Leaders Summit. That's in November in South Africa as well. No, USA, of course, that's well documented. But 19 countries and also the African Union, strong representation. The theme for that, that South Africa put forward to all the countries is from solidarity, equality, and sustainability. So those are the words that is the theme for the G20 2025. So some of the pointers that came out of that, Ashwin, from yesterday, President Ramaphosa opened. He had a strong statement about many issues, but he said that it's important to have a pro-sustainability and inclusive growth. So to unpack that a little bit, he said that typical things is there's insurance mechanisms needed against climate-related disasters. That's one thing that he put to the table, and also a common framework, and that's dealing with debt and budgets. So that is the Minister of Finance, South African Minister of Finance, Minister Enoch Godongwana. He's in a difficult situation now. He must get the South African budget out by the 12th of March. Lots of discussions going on. It's a government of national unity, different to previous years, so there's more input from other parties. And of course, it's also well documented the budget couldn't be tabled a week or so ago because of differences. So the big discussion points remain South Africa's massive debt. The GDP, South African GDP at the moment is about 350 billion US dollars annually. But South Africa do have a debt percentage to that GDP of 77%. So that's extremely high. Compared to Namibia, for instance, is around 65, 66%. The Botswana is 22%. So South Africa really battling to pay their debt. Personal debt is high, government debt is high. Income related, so that's one of the things that need to be discussed in the budget for the 12th of March. The DA, Democratic Alliance, said that they have a plan to save about 60 billion South African rand for the Treasury. And that is things like, they say, even things like travel and catering and also advertising costs that they can cut there. But it is the Commissioner of the SARS, South African Income, that says that we must just more focus on our ability, South Africa's ability to get income in. So that is important. And there's a big burden on a small percentage of taxpayers. So to put it in the context, there will be 570,000 people that will earn more than 1 million South African rand annually in the new coming year. And they pay 80% of what is paid in taxes in South Africa. So it's a high percentage that is a burden. That's just 5% of the income of that group, of course. So it's a lot happening on the budget. We'll see what happens, Ashwin, when the 12th of March come out. The VAT rising, the VAT has also been under discussion, the government said, but there's other countries like Mexico that also have a very high VAT percentage, but then their personal tax is lower then, so you need to compare it apples with apples. So that's a big discussion. Also, just in the news, just briefly on current affairs, I can mention is that there's been a delegation from the Solidarity and AfriForum that's been to Washington. So they say they're a solidarity movement. They put down some documents towards Washington and asking for funding for Afrikaner settlement. So I'm not sure how that's going to turn out. I'm not sure if they're really representing all the voices in that. It sounds a little bit like going back to the old times. But that's also been happening in the background. But I think the focus at the moment is G20 and also trying to get the budget going and not spend more than you earn.
All right. Okay, Ari, moving on to your sports. The South African men's cricket team is gearing up for a crucial Champions Trophy clash against England on Saturday. Tell us about that, because crowd management at major soccer derbies is an issue.
Yes, it's 2 pointers in South African sport. Since the things changed a little bit for South African cricket team. They're playing against England this coming Saturday, but the big change there was that England lost yesterday against Afghanistan. Big surprise. So that's England out of the tournament. So it was going to be a kind of a quarter-final between the two of them if they beat Afghanistan. What's happening now is that's the African team. They still play on Saturday, of course, but Australia play against Afghanistan on Friday. So if Australia beats Afghanistan, then South Africa will be through to the next round. So it is an important game. So we'll see what happens over the weekend, but a big tournament they played. That's the big stadium. That's the FNB Stadium. Can host 87,000. It was controversial just a few, recently, Soweto Derby. They managed to have 100,000 people in there. They opened the gates and it was to avoid a stampede. So I don't know where all the people went, but they had 100,000 in 87,000 seats. That's the police patrolling. Everybody remembers 2017, 2 people died in that derby. But they say crowd management and ticket management is now important. What's happening is there's lots of fake tickets that's on the market and people trying to get into the game in that way. So new ticketing system is very important. So that's related to the sport. So positives and negatives, but hopefully they can sort out the crowd support. Lots of interest, obviously, in the Soweto Derby, always Orlando Pirates and Kaizer Chiefs.
All right. Now, interestingly, Ari, Monte Casino in Johannesburg stands out as a major success story in the entertainment industry, attracting millions of visitors annually.
Yes, in the entertainment, it is a well-known place to visit. And it's 9.3 million people visit Montecasino annually. So it's a high volume of people, and it offers a variety of what you can do there. It's obviously there's the gaming and the casinos. There's also hotels and dining, and there's theatres. So that's a lovely place. There it is. Opened in 2001 at a cost of 1.6 billion South African rand, but it was lots of money way back in 2001. And so lots happening there. At the moment, if you love to go to a theatre, they've got 2 theatres, and Montecasino offer already from the 7th of February up till the 2nd of March, My Fair Lady. So some of you might have seen it, might have seen the movie. It's on stage there at Montecasino. And also, if you, after that, want to go for dinner, that's My Fair Lady there, a brilliant performance. And then there's one restaurant called Cream, K-R-E-A-M, Cream, and it offers the 3-course meal for a couple. So that is good news for 799 rand, for 800 rand for a couple. And the good news is they throw in a free bottle of Boshenmeer bubbly, they say. So Boshenmeer, I can quickly say, is a brilliant estate wine here between Stellenbosch and Franschhoek. So if you're ever in Cape Town, do visit Boshenmeer. It goes back to 1685. Boschendal, not Boshenmeer, Boschendal. So it's a brilliant estate. So a good deal there at Montecasino at Cream for that dinner for 2. So that's a place to visit in Johannesburg.
Yet another spot I need to visit when I come through to South Africa. Thank you, Ari, for bringing us the South Africa report.
It's a big pleasure, Ashwin. Nice talking to everyone. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.
You're still with Africa Good Morning. We're going to take a quick break and come back to say goodbye.
Welcome to Namibia, where adventure meets tranquility. With Enjoy, you have access to a wide range of accommodations to suit every traveler's taste and budget. Experience the finest dining and hospitality Namibia has to offer. Booking your dream accommodation is just a few clicks away with Enjoy. Join thousands of happy travelers who have trusted Enjoy for their Namibian getaway. Your gateway to unforgettable Namibian adventures. Visit us today at enjoy.my.na.
The procession of the remains of Dr. Sam Shafishuna Nujoma will be moving throh Windhoek today. On the show, we also spoke about the memorial service held in South Africa at UNISA, hosted by the Namibian Embassy. We also spoke about 140 years since the Berlin Conference essentially carved up Africa. Thank you for joining us on Africa Good Morning as we continue to bring you the very latest, of course, alongside Ari Hoga today, bringing us the sport report, the South Africa report rather. From me, Ashwin Berry, and the Africa Good Morning team, Sweda Jaganaka.